If you love chaos, but you also love control, or maybe if you love support characters who can also do big Nova damage once in a while with the help of their allies, or maybe if you just want to play an Order Cleric, then you are going to really enjoy this video. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4, each week I take a deep dive into specific character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them, theorycraft about them, not so that I can tell you like the right way or the best way to play a certain character, but to explore one potential way to build something that's both really fun, but also really powerful. So if you enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games almost as much as you enjoy playing the actual game itself, or if you're just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you're thinking about playing, then welcome home. This is absolutely where you belong, and I am so glad you're here. So thank you for watching. My name is Colby, not Cody or Colton. And you know, if you get my name wrong, that's okay. But anyways, I put out videos every Tuesday and sometimes other days as well, but primarily the build videos are Tuesdays. And if you enjoy the content, I hope that you'll consider joining this channel as a member. There's a little button down there that says join. And if you click it, you can learn about member benefits like access to the level by level guides I write up for every build so that you can more easily recreate the character yourself if you want to. Or access to our awesome D4 Discord server, or even access to our monthly live Q&A hangout sessions. I call that sliding into my DMs. It's just a great way to interact with this incredible community a little more and give a little more support to the channel. So huge thank you and shout out to all channel members. I could not do this without you guys. And for everybody else, I appreciate you too. No worries if you can't or even just don't want to be a member. Just watching, liking, subscribing are great ways to support as well, so thank you. All right, longtime viewers of my channel know this, but my favorite way to build and play support characters is to build them so that they can do more than just support their allies. I appreciate that many of you out there are perfectly content to just stand back and heal and buff your allies, and I truly hope that there is a special place in the afterlife for all of you saints where you get to enjoy the rewards of your selflessness. But for the rest of us heathens, we like to hit stuff once in a while too, right? So yes, building a character who's capable of decent support, but also can excel at sustained damage, for example, is a lot of fun. But what's even better, in my opinion, is to build support characters who can Nova or burst damage. Because, I mean, if you're playing support, you should probably be spending a lot of your actions and bonus actions, well, supporting, right? Healing, buffing, debuffing, controlling, inspiring. So building in some great burst damage capability to a support is a great way to let you have like your support cake and eat it too by blowing up an enemy or two once in a while. Okay, that metaphor kind of got away from me a little bit there, but you know what I mean. Now, a while ago, I did a build that was intended to be a fantastic non-magical support. A battlefield commander build that was all about being like the best drill sergeant ever. Check out the video there if you want. You know, we were bolstering our allies, inspiring them, making them hit harder, making them hit more often, and so on. It was a really fun build, conceptually, I think, and yeah, the aim was to make it work without magic, or at least mostly without magic, and what little magic we did use was very easy to like flavor and pretend like it wasn't really magic. I'm talking spells like motivational speech, for example. But there's arguably an even better way to do this, like make my allies hit more often thing, if we let ourselves use magic, specifically divine magic. So maybe here we're a little less of a drill sergeant or platoon leader and more of a, you will follow my guidance and heed my word to stand in the light or else kind of thing. But the best part is, going this route, we get a healthy heaping of burst damage, healing, and other support capabilities to boot. And yes, I'm talking about the Order Cleric. Order Clerics are so good. They are, to me, the ultimate character in all of D&D if you really want to watch your allies shine. First of all, because they're a cleric, so they can buff and heal with the best of them, right? But most especially because of their really fantastic Voice of Authority feature that lets their ally get an extra attack with that ally's reaction so long as we cast a spell of first level or higher on that ally. Of course, me being me, I want to take that idea and stretch it as far as I can. What if we could give 2 allies a reaction attack fairly reliably, at least once in a while, and couple it with some spell damage of our own? Wouldn't that make a really incredible support character who could semi-frequently do some decent burst or nova damage to at least a couple of different enemies on the battlefield via their own spells and the use of their allies? I think it would. So let's break it down in D&D build number 152, Order and Chaos. Harvey Dent, the Judge. Lawful Chaos. Order of Discord. How about Law and Disorder? Yeah. That's my favorite. And a huge shout out to Discord user and channel member Lost Soul for coming up with that name. And yeah, as an aside, I'm probably going to be asking for help from channel members on Discord to help me name builds going forward, at least from time to time. So that's fun. Anyways, also a big shout out to my good friend Randall Hampton for the fantastic artwork that he's created for this build. He is a fantastic artist, as you can obviously tell. If you'd be interested in following him on social media or potentially reaching out to see if you could commission him to create some art for your character or even your entire party, I will, as always, put links in the video description on how to do so. Thanks, Randall. Also, I am thrilled to have Czepeku as a sponsor for the video again this week. And okay, if you guys don't know Czepeku, then you have been missing out big time. They are some of the best TTRPG map makers in the world and are the #1 RPG map creator on Patreon with over 20,000 patrons. Very impressive. And there's a reason. To date, they've created over 4,000 hand-drawn maps that you can use in D&D, Pathfinder, or whatever other game you might be playing at your table, and I'm going to highlight some of those in a second. And these maps are stunning. Super high res with map options for every conceivable environment and game setting, whether you're looking for a classic dungeon crawl or something more offbeat like a giant airship or an alchemist's dungeon. And yeah, speaking of getting outside the norm for TTRPGs, today I wanted to tell you guys about something that Czepeku does that I haven't really talked about before, and it's their love of and focus on creating sci-fi battle maps. Maybe you want to take a break from swords and sorcery and try your hand at Starfinder or Cyberpunk or the Star Wars TTRPG, right? Or maybe you just want to take your D&D game into the future or into the astral plane or a planescape setting that's a little more alien, a little more futuristic. If so, no worries. Czepeku has got you covered. So if you need spaceships, space stations, alien worlds, vehicles, or mechs, there's probably a perfect map on Czepeku's site to fit your needs. Best of all, the mech and spaceship maps have both interior and exterior versions, so whether you're fighting inside room to room or in a dogfight on the surface of a space station, for example, you can see your environment in beautiful detail. Getting access to their maps is super simple. You just support them on Patreon. There are a couple of support options. There's a $1 per month option, which gives you the basic day and night VTT compatible digital battle maps, and then a $5 a month option giving you access to all map variations as well as music, animations, and even Foundry VTT modules. Best of all, when you sign up to support them, you automatically get access to their entire existing backlog. You are not charged for anything that they've already created, only for new stuff going forward. And you can cancel at any time with no strings attached. It's such an incredibly generous business model. You should absolutely take advantage. To do so, just go to czepeku.com right here, and if you like what you see, which I'm sure you will, then go to their Patreon at patreon.com/Czepeku and show them some love. I'll put those links in the video description, of course. So, huge thanks to Czepeku. You guys are amazing, and let's jump into the build. All right. At level 1, for our starting class for this Order Cleric, we're going to start off as a sorcerer. Naturally. Okay, look, we do want some sorcerer levels eventually on this character, and I'll get into some of the why later, but we want to start sorcerer for two main reasons. First up, Constitution saving throw proficiency. Sorcerers are the only full spellcasters in-game who get this, and we don't want to multi-class into anything on this build that's going to keep us from full spellcaster progression, at least not until later anyways. And Constitution save proficiency is so strong, helping us succeed on those concentration checks with a lot more regularity. But the other reason that we want to start Sorcerer is for access to one single, very important, very powerful spell. Oh, and by the way, there is a way to build this character that I'm doing today that is mostly Sorcerer actually, and it in fact comes online a little bit sooner and hits a little bit harder, at least early on. I'll go over how to do it in the final thoughts, so stay tuned if you want to check that out. As for our race, I'm gonna go, unfortunately, maybe with, my old standby custom lineage. There is a feat that is incredibly important for this build to get us firing on all cylinders as quickly as possible, and I just don't want to delay getting that feat. And since that feat is a half feat, custom lineage is the way to go, since it gives us a +2 increase to one ability score of our choice and a free feat, letting us thus start with an 18 in our most important ability score. As for the free feat that we're taking, yes, it's going to be Fey Touched, one of my favorites. It's one of the best feats in the game. It is absolutely perfect for this character. It gives us, first of all, a +1 to our wisdom score, but then also the Misty Step spell, perfect on every character for some nice teleportation ability, and then one other first level spell of our choice, so long as it's from the enchantment or divination schools of magic. And there is an enchantment spell that we very much want on this character, and it is Dissonant Whispers. Dissonant Whispers is, I think, a pretty underrated spell. It does decent damage, 3d6, but then if the enemy fails their wisdom save against it, they also have to use their reaction to immediately run away as far from you as they can, avoiding obviously dangerous ground. Now, I've talked about this before in my Eldritch Whisperer build, but a lot of people are still confused about this, so I want to reiterate something here. When an enemy fails their save against Dissonant Whispers and has to run away, yes, they do provoke opportunity attacks if you or an ally is standing next to them when they run. People get confused by this. It's true that if you are moved without using your movement, like if you're shoved or hurled by a thunder wave or something, then no, you don't provoke opportunity attacks. But if you use your movement, and in this case, the Dissonant Whispers target is very much using their movement to run, even though they're being compelled or forced to do so, then yes, they still will provoke an opportunity attack. Look it up in the Sage Advice Compendium if you need to, or just keep telling me I'm wrong in the comment section. It's okay, that's good for the algorithm. Anyways, this is the first thing we will be doing on our Nova round to get more damage, albeit from our ally, since our attacks on this character are pretty weak. Take advantage of a harder hitting friend instead. Alright, as for ability scores, I assume as always that we're going point by here and say let's start with a 15 wisdom and then take +2 from our racial there and the +1 from the feat, right? So we've got an 18, and then a 14 constitution and a 14 charisma. Remember, we have to have at least a 13 charisma to multi-class into or out of sorcerer. This does mean that we're going to have a crap dexterity and only a mediocre charisma even for our sorcerer spells and things. So we're basically the worst level 1 character of all time. Horrible AC, mediocre at best spells, just hang out in the back and hold on for dear life. Things get much better at level 2. As for equipment, I'm going to say let's go with the gold buy method and just buy some scale mail and a shield. I know we can't even use them yet, but we are going to want them soon, so just stick them in your bag. As for our Sorceress Origin, our subclass, which sorcerers get right at level 1, what do you think I'm going with here? There are plenty of great options. Aberrant Mind gets Dissonant Whispers for free, and we wanted that spell, right? But in that case, you'd be using your charisma for the spell DC, right? And we're not planning on bumping our charisma for the rest of our character's life, so that's not awesome. But they do still have a nice spell list. Clockwork Soul has an arguably better one. Shadow Sorcerer gets some decent little survivability. Lunar Sorcerer gets to use the shield spell for free once per day. Storm Sorcerer wouldn't be terrible for the fly away without provoking opportunity attack feature. But you know what I want more than any of them? And honestly, it's primarily for thematic or character concept purposes. Wild magic. Yes, indeed. I have gone on record saying that I'm not a big fan of wild magic and chaos magic in this game, but for this character, I just have to. We start out our career as this champion who's been touched by the Fae, right? And it has done something to us. It's made us volatile. infused us with magic that cannot be controlled. We try and try and try to hold on to these surges raging inside of us, but every once in a while, something explodes and it is driving us insane. We have got to find a way to control it, and we will stop at nothing to do so. So yes, at this level, Wild Magic Sorcerers get a couple of features. First, and most famously, Wild Magic Surge, which tells us that whenever we cast a sorcerer spell of first level or higher, our DM can have us roll a d20, and then if we roll a 1, we get to roll on the Wild Magic Surge table. And here's hoping that your DM does this every time you cast a sorcerer spell, or what's the point of playing a Wild Magic Sorcerer, honestly? But anyway, yeah, if you roll a 1, something crazy happens. You roll a d100 and consult the Wild Magic table to see what you've done. And it could be awesome, like you get to cast Magic Missile as a 5th level spell, or it could be terrible, like casting Fireball on yourself. Or it could be benign and hilarious, like making your hair fall out, but then it grows back in 24 hours. It's fun, it's zany, and it makes my OCD eye twitch. We also get Tides of Chaos, which just gives us advantage on an attack, a save, or an ability check once per long rest, though we get that use back when we roll on the Wild Magic Surge table, and our DM can even just decide to make us roll when we cast a spell, we're told. So again, here's hoping that's happening semi-often. I'm not actually planning on making attacks on this character, so yeah, my decision to go Wild Magic is truly motivated almost exclusively by character concept here. As always, feel free to go a different route, but hey, having advantage on a saving throw when we really need it is pretty nice. As for first level sorcerer spells, Mage Armor and Sleep at this level are great, and we are a pretty crappy level 1 character, but we only get 2 spells as a Sorcerer 1, and we're not coming back to Sorcerer for a while, meaning we couldn't switch those out for a bit, right? So I'd probably just try and survive level 1 and instead take Shield here. Always a fantastic defensive reaction option to increase your AC by 5 for a round when you get hit, but most important of all, yeah, Silvery Barbs. A lot of people complain that this spell is overpowered. Most of you know I don't really think that's the case, though I am often getting attacked by the Silvery Barbs mob for saying as much. Admittedly, it is very, very strong, and it's especially good on Order Clerics, though Clerics don't typically get access to the spell, hence this is our other main reason for wanting to start Sorcerer, right? With this spell, you use it as a reaction when a creature within 60 feet, presumably an enemy, succeeds on an attack, a save, or an ability check. This spell forces them to re-roll the die, potentially failing. So a nice way to help an ally stay safe or cause an enemy to fail that saving throw after all kind of thing. Regardless of whether they fail that second roll or not though, we importantly get to choose another creature and give them advantage on their next attack, save, or ability check as part of the spell, right? This is the best spell ever for Order Clerics, especially. And we'll get into why in just a second. Because yes, at level 2, at this point, our champion has discovered something to give them hope for controlling the chaos that rages inside of them. Maybe they heard a sermon from a priest of Foltus, or were inspired by a paladin of Tyr, but something convinced them that this deity or order can give them respite, power, and above all, control of the wild magic if they will but pledge their devotion to them and follow their creeds. So yes, whatever your reasons, we are taking cleric levels now. And as a cleric 1, we also get our subclass, our divine domain, and of course we are going with the domain of order. Now Order clerics get some incredible features at level 1, among the best of all clerics, I think. First off, heavy armor proficiency, hallelujah, so throw on that scale mail and shield you've been lugging around inexplicably for this first level. Yeah, clerics get shield proficiency too, right? And maybe you can even work this out in advance with your DM and have you receive this armor and shield from the church maybe when you first take your vows of faith or something like that. But you also get proficiency in either intimidation or persuasion. Intimidation feels a little more fitting to me personally for this character, but do what you want. But then we get the incredible, amazing voice of authority feature, which, like I mentioned in the preamble, lets us cause an ally that is affected by one of our spells of first level or higher to immediately use their reaction to make an attack. If a spell affects multiple allies, we we choose which ally gets the extra attack, right? And this is why Silvery Barbs is so good for us, because even though it affects an enemy by causing them to re-roll a successful roll, remember, it also affects an ally in that we get to give someone advantage. So yeah, whenever an enemy succeeds at something we really don't want them to succeed at, we can both force them to re-roll and give an ally advantage. And upon doing so, that ally will immediately make an attack, now with advantage. And it's just so perfection. So yes, at this point, here's what our Nova round looks like. We cast Dissonant Whispers with our action, doing damage and hopefully causing an enemy to flee, provoking an opportunity attack from ideally our hardest hitting ally. Later in the round, as soon as an enemy succeeds at anything, we use Silvery Barbs to force a reroll and grant advantage to a different ally. I mean, and for that matter, we could use Silvery Barbs with our reaction immediately if they were to succeed on their save against Dissonant Whispers, right? Greatly increasing the chance that Dissonant Whispers works, which is awesome. But yes, generally this is going to be a second ally, right? Because the first one used up their reaction, so unless it's happened at a point in the round where our friend has already taken their turn and now they have their reaction again, we got to pick somebody else. But then yes, this second ally also gets to use their reaction to make an attack, and we've just done quite a bit of damage over the course of the round, though admittedly most of that damage was coming from our puppets. Our allies. Not to mention doing a bit of potential control by causing an enemy to flee, and further supporting our team by forcing an enemy to reroll a successful save or attack. We are amazing, and maybe best of all, we can make our allies better and help them have more fun by giving them more opportunities to do cool things. We do get cleric spells at this level, of course, too, and Order Clerics get Command and Heroism for free, both decent spells to give an enemy a one-turn command or bolster an ally with some temporary hit points every round. And of course, you should grab Guidance for some nice utility and Healing Word for a great heal from range as a bonus action. But the most important ones for us are going to be Toll the Dead, the hardest hitting cantrip in game outside of a buffed Eldritch Blast anyways, doing 1d12 of damage to an enemy who fails their wisdom save against it, so long as they aren't at full hit points anyways, otherwise it's a d8. And then either Bless or Bane. Both of these spells are fantastic, either buffing allies with a d4 to their attacks and saves, or debuffing enemies with a minus d4 to their attacks and saves. Which one's better to use? It all depends, of course. Chris, Treant Monk, actually did a great video back in the day, kind of talking about which is better to use when. Check it out up there. But for us, yeah, Bane would make our enemies less likely to resist our Toll the Dead and Dissonant Whispers, but Bless would make our allies more likely to hit with those opportunity attacks that we're giving them. By our first damage report, we're going to be concentrating on something else, so I'm not going to worry about doing the math too much here, but I think personally I'd probably lean towards Bane for these early levels. The enemy does get to save against Bane, but it's a charisma save, so very few enemies are going to succeed. We've got an 18 wisdom, right? I especially don't want them succeeding against Dissonant Whispers, since so much of our damage is dependent upon that spell, both hitting and then causing them to flee, which is going to trigger a reaction attack. Anyways, know your options. At level 3, we would be a cleric 2, and all clerics get Channel Divinity at this level, which they can use once per short rest to do one of 3 things. First, Turn Undead, which lets you use your action to force undead within 30 feet to make a wisdom save or run away from you for a minute. More opportunity attacks. Hooray. Everyone gets Harness Divine Power to let us recover some spent spell slots, or as an Order Cleric, we get the option to use Order's Demand, which, similar to Turn Undead, lets us use our action to force all enemies within 30 feet of us to make a wisdom save or be charmed by us, and drop what they're holding. That's situationally useful at best. Charmed just means they can't attack or harm us specifically, and that we have advantage on social ability checks with them, and it only lasts until they take damage or until the end of our next turn. Honestly, on this character, I'm probably using Channel Divinity for Harness Divine Power, mostly, when I can. Unless I'm up against undead or really need to charm a bunch of people, whether because I'm about to ask them something or because I'm about to die and I can't take any damage or something like that. Anyways, at level 4, we would be a Cleric 3, and that means we get second level Cleric spells. Order Clerics get Hold Person and Zone of Truth for free, which are both great to either paralyze a humanoid or get someone to confess all their secret plans. But otherwise, I'd probably just go for the usual Cleric 2 options here. Aid to heal 3 party members by 5 and give them 5 more maximum hit points, right? Scaling up by 5 with every spell level above 2nd that you cast it. This is a super potent buff. Lesser Restorations, a nice cure-all, and sure, Spiritual Weapon for a concentration-free ethereal weapon that you can make attacks with using your bonus action outside of your Nova round. At level 5, we would be a Cleric 4, and that means we get an ability score increase or feat, and we are for sure bumping Wisdom here to cap it at 20, as that affects just everything we're doing damage-wise, and also increases our heals, etc. Don't forget also at this level, Toll the Dead goes up to 2d12. We're not using it during our Nova round yet, but it's something that we'll be using quite a bit, I think, outside of our Nova round. So anyway, 2d12 damage, not bad. At level 6, we would be a Cleric 5, and first up we get Destroy Undead. This lets us, when we use Turn Undead against undead creatures of challenge rating 1/2 or lower, if they fail to save against it, they just poof into skeleton dust. That's always fun. But then we also get 3rd level Cleric spells, of course. Order Clerics get Mass Healing Word and Slow for free. And Mass Healing Word is a little meh unless you have multiple allies that are unconscious, but Slow? That's incredible. One of the best debuffs in the game, lowering enemy AC, dex saves, move speed, and keeping them to only an action or bonus action, no multi-attack, possibly slowing down spellcasting even. It's so good. But I'm not assuming we'll be using it for our concentration during our Nova round, because we get so many other amazing 3rd level options here. Revivify, of course, in case someone bites the bullet. Dispel Magic is great. Aura of Vitality is one of the most efficient heal spells in game. I love to use it between combat encounters, especially since it requires concentration, but there are 2 that I especially want to highlight here. First up, Spirit Guardians, of course, that Cleric staple that, with our concentration, does 3d8 damage or half on a Wisdom save every single round to enemies who either start their turn within 15 feet of us or enter that same area on a turn. No, we're not going after any silly shenanigans to move enemies into the area with this build. Check out the Nature Cleric for that. But especially for someone who's focused on doing damage to a couple of enemies like we are, it's just hard to beat this spell. And yeah, it's great not just for our Nova round, but for every round, doing wonderful things for our sustained damage too, right? It even slows enemies down if they're affected by it. The worst thing about the spell, honestly, is that it means no more Bless or Bane, and that we can't use it with slow, right? I really hope that you've got a Paladin or like Divine Soul Sorcerer or someone who can keep Bless up on the party now. There is an argument to be made for using Bless still anyways, as the benefit to your entire team might outweigh the damage that you do with Spirit Guardians, but that's impossible for me to know, so I'm just going to assume that we are switching to Spirit Guardians here. The other spell that I wanted to mention, I'm not actually planning on using right now, but I might later once in a while. It's Bestow Curse. This is a really interesting spell that I probably don't use enough, honestly. It lets you inflict all kinds of potential curses on an enemy. You can only choose one curse, but you get to choose from a nice list. Probably the best one is that you can curse an enemy so that they have to make a Wisdom save at the start of every turn, and if they fail, they don't get to do anything that round. Awesome. Also interesting for us especially though is that you can give them disadvantage on ability checks and saving throws to an ability of your choice. In case you haven't noticed, every saving throw that we are forcing enemies into on our Nova round are Wisdom saves. And while that's generally a good save to be targeting for us, giving disadvantage on that save is going to be even better. And then there's the all of your attacks and spells do an extra d8 of damage to the target curse, which, I mean, more damage is always welcome, right? Now, the spell requires concentration, so I'm not actually planning on using it at the moment, but if you upcast it to 5th level or higher, it doesn't require concentration any longer, and that's fantastic. Will I try to put it in the damage report once we get to 5th level spell slots? I don't think so. It takes an action to use, which means we don't get Spirit Guardians going on round 1, and we're not going Nova until like round 3. I can see it being useful in a really big, long fight, especially where you might have 3 or more really tough enemies, but in that case, probably curse someone to take them out of the fight, unless they make their Wisdom save, right? And then focus on damaging 2 other enemies. Anyways, I just wanted to mention the spell as it's potentially a really good one, and I probably don't talk about it enough. Don't forget, at this level, clerics also get Channel Divinity now twice per short rest, so that's great, both if you want to turn undead and recover spell slots, or charm some people, right? Alright, at level 6, it is time for our first damage report. here is what combat is going to look like for us at this level. Assuming that we're trying to do as much damage as possible, on round 1 we're getting Spirit Guardians going, but then on round 2, or whenever we're ready to burst, with our action we're upcasting Dissonant Whispers as a 3rd level spell, potentially doing 5d6 to an enemy and forcing them to run, provoking an opportunity attack from an ally when they do so, and then with our reaction later, or maybe even this turn if they succeed against Dissonant Whispers, right? But as soon as an enemy succeeds against something, we Silvery Barbs, granting advantage to a different ally and letting them make a reaction attack as well. Now, of course, if we're trying to calculate how much damage we are doing with all of this, we have a huge problem, and it's that I have no idea who your allies are and what kind of damage they're able to do reliably. So yes, unfortunately, I'm going to have to make some assumptions here. The best ally you could be targeting, with Silvery Barbs especially, is an allied rogue, since they would be making their attacks with their reaction and thus getting to use sneak attack again. Look it up. I promise that's how it works, rules as written. And especially since you're giving them advantage via Silvery Barbs, they're for sure going to be able to trigger sneak attack, right? I tried to take advantage of this fun little tactic in one of my first ever team up builds a long time ago, the battery and the blender. Anyways, do you have a rogue in your party? I have no idea. I'm going to assume that you do, but let's just say it's like a plain old rogue with nothing fancy. I don't care about their subclass. I don't assume they have magic weapons. They're just a level 6 rogue using a short sword with an 18 dexterity. So if they hit, it would be for 4d6 plus 4. As for the other ally, I mean, is it too much to say they're like a barbarian or a fighter using a great sword with like the Great Weapon Master feat? That's pretty vanilla, not incredibly optimized. But also, I mean, definitely not in every party, right? But I mean, you could do better. A Great Weapon Master Devotion Paladin who could smite with a nice plus to hit chance, for example. Let's call companion number 2 a champion fighter with an 18 strength using a great sword and the Great Weapon Master feat. Results will vary. Raise or lower these numbers that I'm reporting on accordingly, but under these assumptions, if everything sticks, we would be doing 5d6 for Dissonant Whispers, 3d8 times 2 enemies, I'll assume, for Spirit Guardians, 2d6 plus 14 for the fighter, and 4d6 plus 4 for the rogue. Again, likely to be different targets here, for a grand total of 11d6 plus 6d8 plus 18 divided among 2 enemies. And thus, against enemies with a 10 armor class and a plus 0 to their wisdom save, we would on average do 75 damage during our Nova round here. And against an enemy with a 15 AC and a plus 5 to their save, it would be 61 Nova damage. And compared to other burst damage against multiple enemies builds that I've done to date, check in the video description. There's a link to a graph where you can see these other builds, right, and how they stack up. This is pretty dang good by comparison. It's near the top of the pack at this level, second only to the Burst of Light Cleric, who was slinging fireballs and doing damage to 3 enemies. So yeah, this build here is beating out even some builds doing damage to 3. Remember, I'm calculating total damage done here. So, I mean, if you can get 3 enemies into the area of your Spirit Guardians, the number is going to go up, right? But of course, yes, the numbers are going to vary widely depending on your allies, so could be a lot better, could be a lot worse, but I feel like this is a decent estimate. One note, the rogue's damage is significantly better than the fighter's here, right? Largely because I decided to give the rogue advantage. It just felt like the more honest way to go if I was going to assume that the rogue's getting sneak attack. If they can sneak without that advantage, give advantage to a Great Weapon Master user instead if you have one. Anyways, the damage is good, but it is about to get a whole lot better. So let's keep going. At level 7, we would be a Cleric 6, and this is a really important level for this build. I wish I could have gotten here by the damage report because it sort of completes the core of the build, and we actually get the ability that sort of inspired me to try to build this character in the first place. I was kind of building around this feature, but starting out as Sorcerer 1 just felt too important so that we could have Constitution saving throw proficiency and Silvery Barbs right out of the gate. Anyways, yes, now we are finally a Cleric 6, and as an Order Cleric, that means the really cool and fun embodiment of law. This tells us that wisdom modifier times per day just doesn't quite roll off the tongue like. Anyway, so 5 times per long rest now for us, we can cast an enchantment spell with a casting time of 1 action as a bonus action instead. That's awesome. It's kind of like having a restricted quicken spell. And yeah, I haven't really mentioned this, but the really fantastic thing about both of our stellar Order Cleric features is that they're not restricted to cleric spells. I love that so much. It really frees up what we can do with these abilities. So now, during our Nova round, we could Dissonant Whispers with our bonus action, then use our action to cast Toll the Dead. Remember, if we cast a spell with our bonus action, any spell, then the only other spells we can cast on this turn are cantrips, right? No worries, Toll the Dead is a good spell, and it hits for 2d12 now if the enemy fails their save against it, right? And we're going to find ways to make it even better. Also, don't forget, at this level, thanks to multi-classing, we do have 4th level spell slots, meaning we could upcast Spirit Guardians now to do 4d8 damage per enemy each time it does damage to them, and Spirit Guardians is the spell that I would focus on upcasting, I think, with this build. Alright, at level 8, now that we have the all-important Spirit Guardians and we can cast Dissonant Whispers as a bonus action 5 times per day, freeing up our action for a cantrip, I want to make that cantrip a little more powerful, like I just said. So this means going back to Sorcerer for a bit. So yes, at this point in our character's career, just when they felt like they had the whole chaos thing under control, something happens and the surges maybe start to show up again, maybe more frequently. I would definitely talk this over with your DM and kind of like plan on a cool story moment to happen as you take some more sorcerer levels here to kind of show the struggle between order and chaos inside of you, like intensifying somehow. Regardless, as a sorcerer too here, we simply get Font of Magic, right? Sorcery points. So now we can create more spell slots with our sorcery points. And then at next level, level 9, we would be a sorcerer 3, and we get meta magic so that we can use those sorcery points for cool, awesome stuff. Now, we get to pick 2 meta magic options from a nice, juicy list, and I think for the first time ever on this channel, I'm not going to recommend taking Quicken's spell. I know, I'm just as surprised as you are. I mean, we already have our bonus action spellcasting ability, right? And yes, arguably we could have gotten to this earlier to let us do that bonus action spellcasting thing earlier on. Again, stay tuned for the final thoughts where I'll talk about that alternative. But anyways, yeah, Quicken Spell is still great. I mean, I still might take it anyway, but alternatively, Heightened Spell could be good. It's expensive, but it gives the enemy disadvantage on a saving throw versus a spell that we use this with, right? Subtle Spell, always a classic, but the one I want to make sure that we grab here is, yes, Twinned Spell. This lets us take a spell that normally can affect only one target to instead affect 2. The cost is equal to the spell's level, so it can get expensive fast, and while sure, you could twin Dissonant Whispers to potentially do damage to 2 targets and then make both of them run away, if we're upcasting that, we won't even have the sorcery points to twin it, forcing us to lower the damage that it could potentially do, and I mean, we don't really want to assume that we have a third party member now that's a decent melee combatant and getting opportunity attacks, right? It feels like stretching it a little too far. Instead, let's go ahead and just twin Toll the Dead. It's only a single sorcery point to twin cantrips and doing 2d12 to both of our targets that we're hitting, right? Feels really nice for sure. We also get 2nd level sorcerer spells here, and while there are plenty of good ones to choose from, the 2 that I'm going to highlight here are, first, a spell I've never talked about in a build before, Wither and Bloom. This spell is honestly not amazing, but in the hands of an Order Cleric, it becomes much better. It basically does a little damage. It's only 2d6 in a small 10-foot radius area, but then it also lets you heal an ally in that same area of effect. They use one of their unspent hit dice to heal, unfortunately, but then add what will be for us our charisma modifier to the healing. And of course, since you've now affected an ally with a spell, they get to make a reaction attack. Not something we'd necessarily be using our action on during our Nova round, right? But on other rounds, especially if an ally needs a little heal, it can be a great way to pack a big punch to an otherwise fairly lackluster spell. The other spell I'd say to make sure and grab here is Vortex Warp. Man, I love this spell. This might be my favorite spell for this build. It just lets you teleport either an enemy if they fail their Constitution save, or more likely for us, an ally, anywhere within 90 feet of us, which is just a huge area. And of course, since we're an Order Cleric, we can not only teleport them, but upon arrival, they could instantly make an attack against an enemy that they land next to. It's just a perfect, like, speedball, get help combo, and I love it with all of my heart. And honestly, so will your ally. Raging Barbarian too far away to hit an enemy and might be at the risk of losing rage? Not anymore. Vortex Warp and surprise! It's like a blink strike that you get to cast on your ally. It's so great. Don't forget, we do get 5th level spell slots at this level thanks to multiclassing, and yes, that means we could now potentially use Bestow Curse and Spirit Guardians if we wanted, right? Again, I'm not going to assume that we are because of the setup cost, a whole action to get Bestow Curse going, but if you somehow manage to get it off, like maybe before combat starts or something, it could take an enemy out of the fight or help you do more damage to at least one of them. All right, level 9, time for our next damage report. Since last check, we have added not only a 2d12 Toll the Dead to our Nova round, but a twinned 2d12 Toll the Dead to 2 enemies. Our Spirit Guardians can potentially be upcast to do 5d8 per enemy now with our 5th level spell slot, and we could upcast Dissonant Whispers to do 6d6 damage with a 4th level slot as well. Not saying that we should, of course, but as always, we're exploring the limits of what's possible, right? Oh, and I guess our fighter now has a 20 strength and our rogue has both a 20 dex and their sneak attack has scaled to like 5d6. So against enemies with a 10 armor class and a +0 to their wisdom saves here, we would on average do 128 damage during our Nova round. And against a 16 and a +6, it would be 101 damage. To just 2 enemies, not bad, little Two-Face, Harvey Dent, little Judge. Since last check, the Evoker has slipped ahead of us on the spreadsheets, but this build is still beating out every other 2 enemy Nova damage dealer that I've ever done to date at this level, and even some 3 enemy builds, right? And the support and the control and the party feel-good levels are through the roof. But at level 10, now that we've got Twin Spell and those 2nd level Sorcerer spells under our belt, I think we just go back to Cleric here. So we'd be a Cleric 7, and that means we get 4th level Cleric spells. Order Clerics get Compulsion and Locate Creature for free. Compulsion is particularly interesting for this build conceptually, as it forces a number of creatures to run away in any direction that you choose. Could provoke a world of opportunity attacks, I guess. But as it requires our concentration, I'm going to be sticking with Spirit Guardians. Locate Creature brings some nice potential utility when you really need to find someone, whether friend or foe, right? But beyond that, sure, just go for Banishment to like just remove an enemy from the fight, especially if they're from another plane of existence, like a devil or something, as then they're gone permanently. And I'd grab Death Ward for sure to give someone in your party a get out of jail free card when they drop to 0 hit points, letting them drop to 1 instead. At level 11, we would be a Cleric 8, and that means we get another ability score or feat. And I mean, you know what? Sure, I'm going to take Meta Magic Adept. I mean, we could get more sorcerer levels to get more sorcery points, right? Or we could do the smart thing and use this feat to increase our defense, maybe bumping our constitution to 16, or taking Warcaster for advantage on concentration checks, and so we could cast a spell when we get an opportunity attack, or maybe even Heavy Armor Master to reduce damage dealt to us by 3, but I like Meta Magic Adept because it lets us learn a couple more meta magic options, pick your favorites there, and then gives us 2 more sorcery points per day to spend on them, and that makes like twinning Dissonant Whispers, for example, a little more viable, or just lets us twin Toll the Dead more often, or, I don't know, Vortex Warp 2 allies a little more regularly, etc., etc. I want more sorcery points. Take something else if you want. We also get Blessed Strikes at Cleric 8, and this isn't huge, but it will add a d8 of damage to either a weapon attack or a cantrip, and since we're using cantrips pretty reliably, it's a nice little bump. Unfortunately, it will only affect one target, not both, even if we're twinning it, right? But it's better than nothing, and it works every time we do damage with a cantrip, not just on our Nova round. At this level, Destroy Dead it bumps up to work against undead enemies with a challenge rating of 1 or lower. We get 6th level spell slots now, thanks to multiclassing, and Toll the Dead bumps to 3d12 per enemy hit, so that's awesome. But at level 12, now that we've got that little Blessed Strikes bump and level 6 spells, I can wait no longer. I have held out beyond my capacity for holding out. We are a Nova damage character, people. I have to take fighter levels. Come on, guys. I have to. Okay, fine. I don't have to. You certainly don't have to, but I'm going to because, yeah, I want Action Surge, especially with Twin Spell. It just does really nice things for our double damage dealing selves. So we'd be a fighter 1 here. We get Second Wind to do a little self-heal as a bonus action once per short rest. And then we get a fighting style. And I would probably take defense here to bump our armor class by 1, giving us, plate mail, a shield, and the defensive fighting style, that's a 21 AC without any magic items. That's awesome. But then at level 13, we would be a fighter 2, so yes, we could get action surge, and this would let us, if we wanted to, cast Toll the Dead twice on our turn, once per short rest anyways. And yeah, there's no reason why we couldn't twin Toll the Dead both times using action surge here. You can't usually use more than one meta magic option per spell, with a couple of exceptions. There's no limit to how many spells you can use meta magic on during your turn if you're casting multiple spells on your turn, right? And especially now that Toll the Dead is doing 3d6 per gong, that's 6d12 of damage more potentially if we use action surge and twin it again, and that's just too good to pass up. And this all comes just in time for our next damage report. Since last check, we have now increased the potential damage from Spirit Guardians to 6d8 per enemy, our Dissonant Whispers to 7d6 damage, but honestly, don't use a 5th level spell slot on Dissonant Whispers. That's just silly. Again, we're just exploring what's possible here. We saw a bump to our Toll the Dead and are now using it twice on our turn, potentially, twinning it both times, and adding a little extra d8 of damage once to one of those targets. Our Rogue has seen an additional 2d6 increase to their sneak attack, but our Fighter hasn't really increased in any way, as per my assumptions at least, aside from like maybe getting a better magic weapon that I'm not going to account for. So anyway, against enemies here with a 10 armor class and a +0 to their wisdom save, we would on average do 201 damage during our Nova round, and against a 17 and a +7, it would be 148. We broke the double century mark, and that kind of just keeps us in the same place though, outpacing all but the best 3-target AoE builds at this level for burst damage by comparison. And I'm perfectly thrilled to be here, considering all the potential support that we're bringing and the way we get to make our allies shine and just have more fun. Alright, at level 14, we kind of have a decision to make. You might want to just go back to Sorcerer from here. It would really just be to get more sorcery points above all, but Bend Luck from Wild Magic isn't terrible. It basically lets you spend sorcery points to add or subtract a d4 from an ability check, a save, or an attack roll, so you could use it either offensively or defensively. It's pretty nice, but it does require our reaction, and remember, during our Nova round, I'm assuming we're using Silvery Barbs with our reaction, right? So it doesn't do much for us there. Regardless, more sorcery points and better sorcerer spells are great, but we also don't have a fantastic charisma, so those better sorcerer spells are less appealing than they would be otherwise. And we've got enough sorcery points to be great during our Nova round, at least. We can spend some low-level spell slots to recover more sorcery points if we wanted to. And I don't know, I wanted to be a cleric here and like feel like a cleric, you know? So let's go back to cleric, I say. This would give us 5th level cleric spells here. Order clerics get Commune and Dominate Person for free. Those are both nice. Commune is a ritual and it just sort of lets us talk with our deity to get yes or no answers to questions that we have. Can potentially be a little game breaking, so be careful here. But then Dominate Person, I mean, take total control of a humanoid if you want to use your concentration, potentially super powerful. Beyond that, I'd just make sure to grab Greater Restoration, as it always seems to come in handy for hard to get rid of conditions. At level 15, we would be a cleric 10, and that means we get Divine Intervention. And while I kind of have mixed feelings about this ability, it feels just super cleric-y, right? Once per day, you can reach out to your deity and ask for a special blessing. You only have a 10% chance of succeeding, and if you succeed, the DM decides what it looks like. Talk about a fickle god. If you succeed, you can't use it again for a week. I don't know. It's awesome potentially when it works. It just doesn't work often enough and removes the control from our hands in a way that I just kind of struggle with. I appreciate the changes that they're making to this actually with 1D&D, but for now, we'll enjoy those epic moments when it succeeds and continue to be frustrated when our prayers go unanswered. Don't forget, we have 7th level spell slots now thanks to multiclassing. At level 16, we would be a cleric 11, and that means we get 6th level cleric spells. 6th level cleric spells felt like an important place to get to. That means we could get heal, and it's just a fantastic bam, you're healed for 70 hit points and cured of blindness, deafness, and disease. Be healed! It's a nice, big, like, break glass in case of emergency in combat option. Of course, Hero's Feast might be the better pick here, giving your entire party a fantastic 24-hour buff that gives advantage on wisdom saves, immunity to poison and fear, and a maximum hit point increase of 2d10. And unlike temporary hit points, there's no rule that says you can't benefit from more than one source of maximum hit point increase, right? So yeah, this would stack with aid, for example. If you've got an hour to spare to eat the feast and 1,000 gold for the spell component opponent that gets consumed, it's worth the spell slot, I think. Also, Destroy Undead jumps up to challenge rating 2 or lower now. And then finally, for us, at level 17, we would be a Cleric 12. And that means we get yet another ability score increase or feat. And yeah, I'm probably taking one of the aforementioned options, right? Increasing our Constitution, or taking Warcaster, or maybe even Heavy Armor Master. You might have an even better idea. If so, let me know in the comments. But regardless, pick your favorite. We do have 8th level spell slots now, thanks to multiclassing, so Spirit Guardians could potentially be doing 8d8 damage to each enemy whenever they're affected by it, and then Toll the Dead and all cantrips get their final buff here too, so Toll the Dead's going to be doing 4d12 damage to each enemy each time we use it. And so, for our final damage report. Since last check, Toll the Dead got another d12 bump. We can upcast Spirit Guardians for 8d8 damage, and Dissonant Whispers, if we're crazy, for 9d6. And then we just got a whole ton of awesome undead destroying, divine intervention having, big party buffing options as well, just thanks to more cleric levels. But as for our allies, the rogue got another 2d6 to their sneak attack, and the fighter got nothing. But against enemies here with a 10 armor class and a +0 to their wisdom save, we would on average do 262 damage during our Nova round, and against an 18 AC and a +8, it would be a 187. And yeah, still beating out all multi-target Nova damage builds, but the Evoker and the Light Cleric. But again, doing that much damage to only 2 enemies, while bringing all kinds of great support to the table along the way. So, let's get into some final thoughts here. The tier score for this build, if you just take the damage that they were doing at each of those armor classes, at each of the 4 damage reports, you just average it all into one big number, we end up with a 120, putting us firmly in 3rd place on that AoE Nova tier ranking sheet. But the truth is, it's not a great apples to apples comparison, that sheet, right? The Light Cleric, currently leading the pack there, shows damage done to 3 enemies. Now, they were throwing fireballs, so there's a bigger area of effect there, so 3 felt like a better number, but they were using Spirit Guardians too for a lot of their damage. And for ease of number crunching, I just said, okay, well, 3 enemies for everything. But on this build, I'm like, well, just 2 enemies because we've only got 2 allies that are making attacks, right? So we got to take all of this with a grain of salt, of course. Probably most importantly, a lot of the damage this build is doing came from our allies. And I mean, those allies were super unoptimized and apparently never using magic weapons, right? To be fair, I don't account for magic weapons on any of my builds, but ignoring that is going to have a lot bigger impact on this build than on a character who's built to throw fireballs, like the Light Cleric, right? So you could easily see a big increase over these numbers that I've reported if your allies are building their characters with an eye towards optimization and getting good gear. But even if the numbers didn't move much from what I said they were going to be, I still love where we ended up with this character. Not only a healthy heaping of burst damage to multiple enemies, but yeah, so much great potential support and like cleric-y goodness here. Honestly, I think this is like my favorite character that I've built in a long time, just for the sheer flavor and concept alone. I really love this internal war between chaos and order, and I just think it would be so much fun to bring this character to the table where you can make everyone at your table feel stronger and more powerful than ever, while laying down some serious Nova damage and battlefield disruption, while having some fantastic roleplay hooks to really lean into as well. Finally, I promised a mostly sorcerer version of this concept that's going to come online damage-wise a little sooner, and here's how I'd build it. You'd start off Divine Soul Sorcerer here, not Wild Magic. At level 2, just take a single level dip into Order Cleric for the Voice of Authority and Heavy Armor and Shield Proficiency. Then back to Sorcerer until Sorcerer level 5. Divine Soul Sorcerers get access to both the Cleric and Sorcerer spell lists, so you can get Spirit Guardians and Toll the Dead, right, and use your Charisma modifier to impact them. You can also grab Quicken Spell, of course, along with Twin Spell, meaning that you can do the same Dissonant Whispers as a bonus action thing and still twin your Toll the Dead. In fact, you'd be twinning it more often because you'd have a lot of sorcery points, right? And or twinning that upcast Dissonant Whispers potentially. It all comes online a little bit sooner. It generally hits a little bit harder, at least early on. We'd miss out on a teeny bit of damage from Blessed Strikes on the Cleric later on, as well as other cool cleric-y things like Channel Divinity, Divine Intervention, Destroy Undead, not to mention a bigger hit die, so more hit points, right? I don't know. Even though both builds would function very similarly, I just like the feel of the Law and Disorder character that we ended up with better, you know? If nothing else, I think they tell a better story. But regardless, that's the build for the week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you know that I love you, because I do. You're so awesome. Thank you so much for all that you do for me, for the channel. I hope you have a fantastic day and a great week. And if you don't, I hope you'll hang in there, because I believe you can get past this thing. But I hope that you will be kind and do good, and that I see you again very soon. But until then, take care. Bye. But you held your course to some distant war in the corners of your mind. From the second time around, the only love I ever found. Oh, Angela, it's a long time coming. Hold me last. I ran out of breath. How do they hold that note out for so long? I am not the biggest Lumineers fan in the world, but I really like that song. So what am I missing? What else out there is good that I should be listening to? I need to know. I also need to know, is it just me, or is there like a little dot right there? What is that? It's like a lens flare or something? Is there something on my teleprompter? Well, hopefully it wasn't bugging you the entire video, because I don't have any Windex on me, and I need to get started recording if I want to get this done today. So, sorry. Sometimes the camera likes to focus on Shepard, and I understand, because I also like to focus on Shepard, but I don't like it when it's like really sharp. There, there we go. There we go. Now, if I scoot back, can you maintain? No, the focus. Okay, I think that's good. Bum ba dum bum. I'm kind of getting over a cold right now, and yeah, I don't know. Hopefully my voice will hold out for the next 90 minutes while I record, and I won't get too like Seriously, that dot. Oh, why are you there, dot? Stop it. Now watch, it's like not even gonna show up in the post, and I'll just be like, is Colby hallucinating about an imaginary friend? Is he seeing things? He's started the descent into insanity. It's the chaos. It's the wild magic. I knew it would get me. You will follow my guidance and heed my word. No, wait. Let's say that differently. First level of full... It just looked like I was winking. I don't know if I can just do a minor twitch on demand. Something like that. Anyways. Maybe I should have waited a day to record. Too late now. Whew. Assuming I can keep going and I don't, and my voice doesn't just crumble into dust. I have a cough drop. I don't want to wait 5 minutes while I suck it down, though. At this state. Brain. Okay. All right. I did it. Oh, now I need to go take a bath and like spray some stuff in my nose.